how they have to do the same. I think उसका color
and it is on. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We'll be beginning in a short while. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. We'll be beginning in a short while. Until then, I request all the participants to kindly switch on their cameras to make this session more interactive for us. Thank you.
Hello, Sushil bhai.
Hello. How are you, sir?
Great.
Great. Let's connect after the session.
Yes.
Before we begin with this session, I request everyone to kindly switch on your cameras and mute yourselves. Kindly note this session is being recorded and we are live on YouTube as well. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to each one of you joining us today from India, Hong Kong, and across the globe. On behalf of BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, it is my privilege to welcome you today to this exclusive webinar on Hong Kong, your gateway to global opportunity, organized in collaboration with Invest Hong Kong. I request everyone to please mute your microphone. On Hong Kong, your gateway to global opportunity. Requesting everyone to kindly mute their microphones and switch on the cameras. Thank you. As business increasingly seek resilient, globally connected markets to scale their operations, Hong Kong continues to stand as one of the world's largest international businesses and financial hubs. With its strategic location, business-friendly environment, robust legal workplace, and an unparalleled connectivity to mainland China and the wider Asia-Pacific region, Hong Kong presents immense opportunities for Indian enterprises looking to expand globally. Today's session aims to provide practical insights into Hong Kong's business and investment ecosystem, sector-specific opportunities, and various ways to invest in Hong Kong, and how it supports businesses looking to establish and expand their global footprint. We are delighted today to have entrepreneurs, industry leaders, business professionals, and investors and members of BRICS community joining us today. I thank you all for taking your time out and to be with us today. Before we proceed further, it is my honor to invite Mr. Sushil Sharma, Chairman, Marwari Catalyst Group, and Executive of Startup and Trade Promotion of BRICS CCI, BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to address our participants with his opening remarks. I welcome you, sir, and present the platform to you.
Thank you, Lavanya. Thanks, industry leader, for coming and joining us on this India-Hong Kong partnership. And I welcome Mr. Casey Land for his presence for the event. I look forward that India and Hong Kong has a long way to go because Hong Kong is being a gateway for a lot of businesses, merger acquisition, and will be very, very relevant for all Indian industry leaders. With this note and looking forward for a lot of synergies and an interactive session. Thank you so much and welcome, and over to you, sir. Love.
Lavanya, your mic is on mute.
Lavanya, your mic is on mute.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Again, thank you so much, sir, for providing your inspiring words to us and highlighting the importance for strengthening international business collaboration today. To continue with the inaugural session today, it is now my privilege to welcome Mr. Vipin Babu, founder and CEO of Grow QR and Executive Director of BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We welcome you today, sir, and provide the platform.
Thanks, Lavanya. Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to this webinar between the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Invest Hong Kong. And a special welcome to Mr. Casey Lam. It's a genuine pleasure to open this conversation today because I think the story of Hong Kong and India is really a story of two ecosystems that complete each other and can probably complete each other more. India today is home to one of the most dynamic, innovative startup ecosystems and business ecosystems in the world. And and founders often need a launchpad into the global capital, global trade infrastructure, and global markets, and that is precisely where Hong Kong comes in. And Hong Kong offers something rare, which is a business environment that is open, a favorable tax ecosystem, common law that is governed, and deeply networked into both the mainland China and wider Asia Pacific region. While remaining one of the easiest places in the world to set up and operate a company as well. And for Indian businesses looking to scale into the Southeast Asia or Greater China and beyond, Hong Kong is not just another market; it is probably the right kind of bridge which anybody should be, looking forward to. And something out of my reading experiments, I've known that the relationship between India and Hong Kong have been trading partners since the 1840s, making this one of the longest continuous commercial relationships in the world altogether. And at BRICS, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we see our role as bridge, building exactly these kind of bridges, connecting Indian enterprises and innovation with global partners who can help that ambition travel further. And our partnership with Invest Hong Kong reflects that mission directly. And today's session will give us and all the audience a clear practical view of the ecosystem. So without taking more of your time and the audience time, let me welcome our speaker and hand over to today's discussion. I'm confident that this will be a very valuable hour for everyone looking to expand their footprint from India into Hong Kong and beyond. Thank you. Over to the panel.
Lavanya, you still off? I think you're mute.
Thank you so much for bringing that forward, sir. Again, thank you, Mr. Bipin Babu, sir, for sharing your invaluable insights with us. I'm very sure today's session will be beneficial for a lot of people present over here. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's webinar. We are honored to welcome Mr. King Lam, popularly known as KC Lam, who serves as Deputy Head of International Markets, Consulate and Chamber at Invest Hong Kong, the Government Department of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, responsible for attracting and I would request everyone to kindly mute their microphones. Thank you. Thank you so much. As I was mentioning, Mr. Lam works closely with international businesses, consulates, and Chamber of Commerce, helping companies make informed investment decisions and successfully establish their presence in Hong Kong. Prior to this, he managed the environmental technology, aviation, and logistic portfolio at InvestHK, and previously held commercial and technical roles with one of the Hong Kong's leading airlines. He holds a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Bristol and master's degree in manufacturing from Cardiff University. With his extensive experience in international investment promotion and market development, we are confident that today's session will provide valuable insights into why Hong Kong continues to be one of the world's most attractive gateways for global businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm virtual welcome to KC Lam. Mr. Lam, the virtual floor is yours. We would love to hear.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me, Lavanya?
We can perfectly hear you.
Is it clear? Okay, right. Well, my thanks to Mr. Babu, Lavanya, and Sushil for your very warm welcome. I'd like to also introduce my colleague who's also on this call, Akshi. If you'd like to just wave and signal who you are. Yep. We have an office in India, and actually is our colleague heading that office, and we have a presence in 30 locations around the world, including one in India. So this is part of our work in the outreach to help companies come into Hong Kong. But I'll go into that in just a second. Let me just share my send a request for sharing. So my sharing is not turned on. Can somebody let me in for sharing? Okay, share, right.
Share, I believe.
Yeah. I have it. It's here. All right. Can you see my slide? Okay,
Perfect.
good.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about the context, the geographic and historical context of Hong Kong. I'm not sure how familiar our audience is with Hong Kong as a location. If I were in a room with you, I'll ask for a show of hands who's been to Hong Kong before, but maybe I'll just ask for a virtual show of hands. But it indicates to me a little bit about the level of understanding that we have in the room. But I'll just assume that I can start from the beginning. Hong Kong, I'll give an initial presentation about a historical and geographic location and the things that makes Hong Kong Hong Kong. So the way I always put it is, you know, when you take a photo, you have a snapshot of something as of today, as of now. But understanding where we came from and the context of that history will give us more information about the picture that we take and an indication of where we may be going projecting forward. So in the introduction, you heard thank you. You heard the presentation about my background as an engineer and as a sort of technically minded person. I use the analogy of interpolation and extrapolation, where interpolation is you have data points along a graph, perhaps, and you try to guess what a value is between two known points. So that's interpolation. And understanding the history is interpolation. And how that may project forward beyond your known data range, outside that data range, is extrapolation. So I use that kind of analogy to understand perhaps where we may be heading by giving an understanding of where we came from. So Hong Kong is a former British colony, as I think as most of us will know. And that in itself is extremely important for our conversation today. We share a common history. India was a former British colony. Hong Kong was a former British colony. The fact that today you and I both speak English, we don't speak Portuguese or French, says a lot, says that we have a common heritage. And that informs us that we have so much in common already. Even before we begin to meet each other, we kind of understand each other because of that common heritage. And I think that's a very, very important point that we should leverage in favor of our relationship and building the relationships that we have in the future for business and friendships and so on. A little bit about myself and my organization. As you can see, I am deputy head of a team called International Markets, Consulates and Chambers, and our team essentially looks after the non-China side of the business. Today, attracting business into Hong Kong is roughly 50% from China and roughly 50%, or just under actually, from the rest of the world. And as a result, a lot of emphasis is put on the China side of the business. I look after the non-China side, which is the rest of the world. And our engagement with our international markets through our network of 30 offices and also through the consulates here in Hong Kong and the chambers of commerce in Hong Kong is extremely important. Invest Hong Kong is a Hong Kong government department, and our mission is to promote Hong Kong for businesses and to assist companies in their decision making as to whether or not Hong Kong is a suitable location for a part of their business. Hong Kong has certain characteristics, which I'll talk about, but that makes us good at certain things and not so good at other things. What is really important is that we are able to give as much understanding and as much information upfront ahead of the actual move to make sure that any decision to come into Hong Kong is an informed decision. We don't want our companies to make the wrong decision or the wrong basis of decisions. And that is something which we are very, very adamant about. So let's see if this works. Next. Okay, so where's Hong Kong? You see, can you see my cursor? Wave your hand if you can see my cursor. Lavinia, can you see my cursor? Okay, right, okay. So that yellow patch is China, and along the coastal line of China, Hong Kong is on the southern side of China. And Hong Kong is a tiny, tiny location. And if you magnify that, 2-3 times, you see that actually Hong Kong's just a tiny spread of little islands and a scraggly sort of territory here. And I mentioned historical context and geographic context, and these are things that made Hong Kong into why Hong Kong has become what it is. And the geographic context is the trade history that Britain had with China. So Britain traded with China in the 1700s and 1800s, as it did with India and other parts of their empire, through exchanging things with those places. China traded with Britain large amounts of silk, china, which is porcelain, fine china, and tea. So tea, silk, and porcelain were the main commodities that Britain bought from China. And somebody's not muted. If somebody could mute their, I'd be grateful. Thank you. So essentially, China was trading Britain large amounts of tea, silk, and China porcelain. So Britain used silver as the trading currency, and China amounted a massive trade surplus in silver against Britain. Britain wanted to trade more with China, and China was probably not too interested in this tiny foreign nation. And Britain forced its way into its trade with China by enforcing a gunboat policy. I think we all have heard of that. The trade imbalance was untenable. The Brits ended up trading with China using a different commodity, and that was opium. The opium was produced in Central Asia, and the opium that was produced was then exchanged for the goods that they wanted out of China. The Chinese, of course, found out about it. The Chinese authorities tried to stop it, but were unable. And a war was fought with the British. And in 1842, the first Opium War was fought between Britain and China lost. And the question I ask my audience is, why 1842? Why not 1742 or 1642? And the answer is, in 1842, Britain had already had some 60 or 80 years of industrialization. They invented the steam engine in the 1700s. And by 1840s, Britain was a largely industrialized nation. And when an industrialized nation goes to war against a pre-industrial nation, as was China at the time, there was essentially no contest. So they came with the gunboats, with modern guns and machinery, and they beat the imperial army soundly. And the emperor lost. China lost. And in 1842, this happened. So you recognize this patch from our map. And in 1842, this map, by the way, came from Wikipedia. So I tried to keep my information as open and as balanced as possible. I hope our audience will do fact-checking afterwards. Don't believe everything I say. But hopefully what I give you will give you a start in your reading and your understanding about this market and why we are who we are. And the dark blue patch is the result of a treaty signed between China and Britain in 1842 called the Treaty of Nanking. And that was a treaty giving away Hong Kong, the island of Hong Kong. So this is the island of Hong Kong.
इसमें डाली हो चीनी एक
Hello?
कटोरी दे दे मुझे थोड़े बीज दे दे ढकने को
Hello, I think we have cross lines
Can
here.
you all please mute your
Thank you.
systems?
Thank you. Sorry. So in 1842, this island called the island of Hong Kong was signed to the British in perpetuity, forever, under this treaty called the Treaty of Nanking. The British landed, planted flag here, claimed this as their colony, and there were various reasons why this island was significant and important and useful to the British. The reason is, if I go back to my map, to my map here, come on. Why is it not working? Somebody please help.
So your screen is frozen, I believe.
Yeah, for some reason it's not responding.
Maybe you can try.
Let me stop the share and
yeah,
yes. Stop the share and try and move it. Oh, it's not working. Let me close it and start again. So while I'm doing that, the reason why Hong Kong became interesting for the British is because Hong Kong essentially is an island, and the Brits are an island nation. Cynthia, could you come over to help while I talk? So essentially, okay, my colleagues come to my help. Yeah, so she can, let me turn this around to my side. So essentially, the Brits being an island nation, they understand the strategic importance and advantage of being on an island. And also, Hong Kong Island, being an island, is essentially a rock sticking out of the water. And as a rock sticking out of the water, where the water meets the rock, that line is the shoreline. And as a result, Hong Kong Island makes a deep water harbor. It goes steep and sharply into the water. And that's a distinction from, for example, if you have a long sandy beach, if you're trading and you have these heavily laden ships that go deep under the waterline, you can't park next to the shore. Whereas in Hong Kong, you can park right against the shore and load and offload from your ship directly. You don't need a long pontoon, 300 meters out onto the beach. So that was the main reason why Hong Kong was interesting for. So that was the reason why. Thank you. Wait, let me see if I can share this again. Okay, can you see that? You can see that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, right. Sorry, thank you. So essentially, the fact that we have this very steep entry into the water meant that it's a deep water harbor. So the British saw that as immediately recognized that as an advantage, and the ships could berth right against the shore. It might sound trivial, but for a nation that's so experienced in doing trade and maritime trade, these kind of advantages are very valuable. And the other thing is, if you can see my cursor, the narrow stretch between the island and the mainland of China here, the mainland, that tiny slice is the harbor, Hong Kong Harbor, also called Victoria Harbor, is actually a shelter for typhoons. Because in Hong Kong, we have these seasonal typhoons in the summer. And having the island, this rock, shielding the typhoons that usually come from the southwest, usually come from this side, that stretch of water is a natural shelter for boats. So this actually somehow has made itself into a naturally desirable location for the British to plant a flag. And the other thing is, if you look at this slightly more magnified picture, you see Hong Kong on one side. That on the other side is Macau. And the reason why Macau and Hong Kong were interesting to colonial powers is because that triangle, the estuary, is the estuary of a river system that runs deep into China called the Pearl River. So in those days, there were no roads, no railroads, no bridges. There was no infrastructure. This place was far, far away from the capital city. And there was no, other than ships, there was no way of accessing any of those inland waterways. And so having control of the estuary of a river controls the traffic up and down that river. And the British understood that so well. And so trade was either coastal trade up and down the coast in China or river trade up and down the river. And Hong Kong on the estuary of this very important and complex and deep running system of rivers going deep inland. And this river, by the way, goes all the way up to Guangzhou, by far the largest city in southern China at the time. Canton or Guangzhou, same, different names for the same place. Essentially meant that the British controlled trade in that whole region. And the British understood this. And if you know about the geography of Gibraltar in Spain, that is the choke point between Spain in the north and North Africa in the south. And right at the closest point is the Strait of Gibraltar. And the British until today control Gibraltar because Gibraltar is the choke point controlling the access between the Mediterranean on one side and the Atlantic on the other. And any ship that sails between the two must pass Gibraltar. So the British have this idea, this notion that controlling choke points is really, really key. Today, the Strait of Hormuz is another choke point, but that's a different story. So with that out of the way, we have established that Britain had an interest in China, trade, fought a war with China called the Opium War. The successive wars, I'll go into that in just a second, but essentially we became a British colony as a result of the Opium War. Let me see if I can scroll this. Can you see the video? This is a short video showing images of Hong Kong. If you haven't been to Hong Kong, these are things that are characteristics of our city. Fast-moving, vibrant, full of people and nature, culture and business. I'm not sure if you saw that, or that came quite quick, but essentially, this is what Hong Kong's about. And in 1842, they took this in perpetuity. In 1860, they took a little bit more of the mainland. They got more confident. And until this day, there's a straight line street called Boundary Street that would mark the boundary between British Hong Kong and the rest of Hong Kong, which was Chinese. But in 1898, and a very important date, they leased a huge swathe of land from the Chinese called the New Territories. We call it New Territories because it was new, added. And that lease, as the British would have it, was for 99 years. 99 years. So 1898 plus 99 was 1997. So in 1997, the lease for that light mauve pink part reverted back to China sovereignty. But in 1984, Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher of Britain, went to Beijing to negotiate with Deng Xiaoping, our premier. And she was hoping to somehow, I guess, retain or still have a part in post-97 Hong Kong. Britain had enjoyed massive advantage out of this patch of land, but the Chinese will not have it. Britain took this piece of land under duress from the Chinese. The Treaty of Nanjing was signed under duress at gunpoint. And the China of 1984 was not the China of 1842. And there was no negotiation to be had. So not only the new territories, but everything else had to be returned back to China under what we call the handover in 1997. But one concession was made by Beijing was they allowed Hong Kong to keep and maintain our systems, our institutions, in fact, everything, for a period of 50 years beyond 1997. So Hong Kong would remain unchanged for 50 years beyond 1997. until 2047. And that gave rise to something called the one country, two systems, where this patch of land reverted back to Chinese sovereignty. So we are now Chinese. But the system that we have here in Hong Kong is the system that we had inherited, the legacy system that the British left us and that we continue to maintain. For example, we have English and Chinese as official languages. If you go to a court of law, you can submit documents in English or in Chinese, and both have equal weight, equal value. We have our own currency, the Hong Kong dollar. We have our own tax rates. We can decide our own tax rates. In fact, we have autonomy, and I say autonomy and not independence. We have autonomy on everything except two things, and that is defense and foreign affairs. So for foreign affairs, it's relations between Beijing, Washington, Beijing, Rome, Beijing, Paris, and so on. But Hong Kong does not have a network of diplomatic relations. We have, on the other hand, something we call economic and trade offices. So these deal with economic and trade related affairs. And we have some 17 or 18 of these dotted around the world. And they deal only with economic and trade offices. The other thing that we don't deal with, and that's entirely within the jurisdiction of Beijing, and that's defense. We, in fact, don't contribute a single dollar to the national defense budget. And we don't contribute any manpower to our armies or navies. That's all taken care of by Beijing. So you saw that huge territory of China. Hong Kong's just a tiny dot on that, and they are protecting us free of charge, if you like. And I say that also in the context of our taxation. I'll talk about our taxation in a second, but our taxation is low and can be maintained very low because we don't contribute to the national defense budget. Every dollar that we collect in taxes goes into our schools and our hospitals and our roads and so on, but we don't contribute a single dollar to the national defense budget. And that is a huge advantage that we have over some other jurisdictions. And so we are blessed by this backing, this support from Beijing. And Beijing has every interest in Hong Kong being successful because we are able to offer to international business something that Chinese mainland cities are simply not able to do. So I'm sorry I labored this point at some length because it is important that we understand the context. So I talked about the historical and now the geographic context for why Hong Kong was interested in the British and why Hong Kong has become what it is. And those images you saw about this shiny and beautiful Hong Kong, what didn't come by accident. It didn't come by design. It came by accident. It was a product of history and geography. So this is our patch. You see a lot of green in this, and the purple bits are the urban areas. Hong Kong is very rocky and hilly, and the green parts are the country parts of Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is actually 40% country parts protected by ordinance, by law, and we're not allowed to build on that. So where it's built is very intense. That's why you have all these high rises. On this northern shore of Hong Kong, you see the urbanization mostly happening here. In fact, the shoreline has extended northwards from the original shoreline, which is where these hillsides went into the sea. So a lot of this urbanization happened on land that has been reclaimed. And that has a couple of consequences. One, land is very, very in short supply, in very short supply, and the government can sell land at very high prices. So that supplements our tax revenue. But the other thing is, because land is in such short supply, it distorts the economy a certain way. And so when I mentioned at the beginning, we help companies understand what they can do or cannot do or should not do in Hong Kong. Things that are land intensive, like sprawling factories, things that require a lot of manpower because manpower is expensive in Hong Kong. Land is hugely expensive in Hong Kong. Those kind of things are better done elsewhere, perhaps on the other side of the border in China or in Southeast Asia or other places. But certainly Hong Kong has very, very costly land. And so high value add, small footprint manufacturing is possible. And I think that's something that more and more companies are discovering. But things that require large amounts of land, that are low value add, huge volumes, those are things that we believe should be placed elsewhere. I'll talk about the advantages that Hong Kong offers, our economic growth engines, and how we at Invest Hong Kong can help you in that journey. So our advantages, we figure quite highly on many of the rankings around the world. So we are a free port, we are a free economy. And as a result, we feature highly in the competitiveness rankings and the freedom rankings. So free economy, according to the Fraser Institute, for example. And whether or not we are, number one or number three, kind of by the by. What I always say is actually we rank quite highly, and that's all that matters. And I think for investors, you just have to be good enough. We don't have to be the best, but we just have to tick enough of the boxes that matter to the investor, and that is what really counts. And I think we tick more than enough of those boxes. We count around 11,000 foreign companies set up in Hong Kong, and of these, about 1,500 are regional headquarters for their operations in this region in Asia. The main investors' origin are up here, so Chinese mainland, but also US, UK, Japan, and Singapore, interestingly, figure very highly because they're able to access markets in China that they are less able to do in Hong Kong, in Singapore. And the things that they do are related to trade and trade-related things. So as I said at the beginning, Hong Kong is a trading outpost for the British. The British governed Hong Kong in a very light touch way. They had a very thin administration. They didn't have that much manpower to administer this location, this essentially an outpost. And so they devised very simple, basic frameworks for things to run. So they brought in English common law, and we maintained that. They built this thing, which was this philosophy for governance, which is very light touch. They call it laissez-faire, which is just let it run. And businesses can do things, people can do things until they're told they can't. So it's a negative listing. So it's not approved, therefore you can do it, but rather do it. And until you're not able to do it, then you can do it. And so trading companies, trading firms were the first ones to set up in Hong Kong. Supporting them were the people that moved the goods. So the transportation companies, the logistics companies, the airlines, the shipping lines. Hong Kong has the busiest air cargo airport in the world, bar none. We are, out of the last 15 years, I think we're number 114 out of the last 15 years. So we rank very highly in air cargo, movement of air cargo in the world. We have a free port status. In other words, there is no import or export tariff duty, no import or export duty on anything except 4 things: tobacco, liquor, which is alcohol above 30%. So wine and beer is not taxed on import. Cars and petrol. Cars and petrol, because Hong Kong's such a small place, we have to limit the number of cars in Hong Kong to control congestion. But essentially, Hong Kong is a tariff-free location. People ask me, is there a bonded zone in Hong Kong? And I say, yes, the whole of Hong Kong is a bonded zone. So Hong Kong is a very convenient place to bring things into and out of physically. But not only are we good at movement of goods, but we have free movement of goods, but we also have free movement of people. So goods, people, capital, movement of money, and information. And those 4 things characterize Hong Kong. In a nutshell, Hong Kong is that. It's a free port. With free flow of goods, there is free flow of money because you have to exchange hands, goods against money. And bringing capital into and out of Hong Kong is so easy and so uncontrolled. The control point for movement of capital is on opening of the bank account. The banks will do extensive KYC and due diligence on the client that's opening the bank account. But once they give you the account, it is pretty much over to you. And they don't then monitor each and every movement of funds into or out of that account. So the control point is at opening of the account and much less at the transaction level in movement in and out of account. So movement of goods. Along with that, there was movement of money, and therefore financing grew very, very fast. Trade of goods necessitates things like insurance. So insurance grew, financing, so banks grew, and professional services surrounding those contracts, for example, when you have trade, also grew on the backing of the fundamentals of the English common law. That gives confidence to international trade. Every company that does international trade understands English common law, and contracts set up in Hong Kong under Hong Kong law, which is basically English common law, is well understood. And a lawyer in India, in the UK, in Australia, in all the Commonwealth countries understand perfectly how that system works. And your lawyers can instruct our lawyers exactly how they want things done. The intricacies of the law might be slightly different, and in fact, they have started to diverge since 1997. The cases have changed, so the case laws have evolved differently from pre-97, but essentially the principles and the notions are exactly the same. And so dispute resolution is another big part that Hong Kong plays. When you have trade, there has to be unavoidably contingencies for disputes. And Hong Kong, Hong Kong law in the dispute resolution clause is essential for ensuring peace of mind when your counterparty, typically if you're dealing with a Chinese mainland company, the sort of neutral ground in Hong Kong is acceptable for both the Chinese and the counterparty. So Hong Kong has played that role of being that neutral ground for resolving disputes. And in Hong Kong, it doesn't have to be because of law, because we are well known for the Hong Kong Arbitration Center, for example. And recently we set up the International Mediation Center organization in Hong Kong, where there are different levels now of dispute resolution, from the more friendly mediation to arbitration, and then finally the court of law, which is always there and predictable. But we're also strong at other things which are emerging, so technology, information technology, and so on. So these are things that these companies are doing. One country, two systems. I started to mention about this. We have our own currency, our political and legal systems, and totally separate from the Chinese mainland. They don't have a say in how we run Hong Kong, and they just have confidence that we will run Hong Kong to our best interests and to the best interests of China. We, in fact, have a separate seat at the World Trade Organization, at WTO, and as such, we trade with mainland China at arm's length, and we actually have tariffs of our goods going to China where applicable. And we actually have something you see here called CEPA, CEPA, and that is essentially an FTA between Hong Kong and China, but we can't call it an FTA. Hello? Yeah, okay. So we don't actually have an FTA because we're not a sovereign country, but we are a distinct customs territory, and therefore things that come into Hong Kong will be going into China as if it is from outside of China. In fact, it is from outside of China. Our currency is pegged to the US, 7.8 Hong Kong dollars to $1 US, and the margin for variation is 0.05 Hong Kong dollars. So a very narrow band. Essentially, if you're holding a Hong Kong dollar, you're holding a US dollar. We, as I said, no capital control, and no control on flow of goods and so on. In fact, when you export something or import something, you can actually declare, so you don't need a license to export it. You just export it, but you have to declare what you exported. So I've got, 10,000 pairs of shoes or whatever. So you just tell customers what you exported, and you can do that up to 7 days after the ship is sailed. So we just want to know what happened, what passed through, but we don't control, we don't limit it. Very few, actually, I lie. Very few commodities are controlled. Rice is one, supercomputers is another, but very, very, very few. If you happen to be in one of those, let us know. We'll let you know what the rules are about importing or exporting those very few specific strategic commodities. But the vast majority of it, in shoes or apparel or whatever, we don't care. You just do it. You just get on with it. Down here at the bottom is our calling card, our tax rate. So Hong Kong has only one tax on corporates. We try to keep things so simple. Simple, simple, simple. Simple is beautiful. And we're trying to keep it really simple. Only one tax on corporates, and that's on profits. Profits only. And profits is simply the difference between what you bring and what you bring in and what you expend. That difference is the margin, is the profit. And the standard rate for profits is 16.5%. 16.5. However, a few years ago, we introduced a second band. So imagine, profits being that. If your profit is within the first band, which is 2 million Hong Kong dollars, roughly 250,000, says 256,000 US. So if your profit is 256,000 US or less, then you pay 8.25% on that profit. If your profit is above that, then the first 256,000 US, you pay 8.25, and the difference above that, you pay at 16.5%. So everybody enjoys 8.25. If you make more profit than your contribution above 2 million Hong Kong or 256 US, 256,000 US is 16.5. Essentially, that bracket, 2 million Hong Kong dollars, is designed to help small and medium-sized companies in Hong Kong. We had some pretty challenging times a little while back, and Hong Kong is full of small-sized, medium-sized family businesses. And this bracket was specifically designed to help these marginally profitable companies stay afloat. If a company makes a loss in any one year, they can carry forward that loss to offset future income, to cancel the income, so that it can be used in the future to offset income to pay lower tax in the future, until you have used up all your losses. Then you pay your profits tax. So losses can be carried forward indefinitely with no limit, and profits tax is 16.5 beyond 2 million Hong Kong and 8.25 for that first slice of 2 million Hong Kong. Good news number 2. After paying your profits tax in Hong Kong, owners of the company, shareholders of the company, can pay themselves then in dividends. So you make a profit, you pay your taxes, everything else, the rest is yours. It's retained profits. You can then pay shareholders in dividends. And in Hong Kong, dividends are not taxed. As I said, there's only one tax for corporates, and that's profits tax. There's no other tax, no sales tax, no VAT, no GST. There's not even capital gains. So if you buy a warehouse or buy a property and the property increases in value and you sell it, there is no gains, no tax on the capital gains. There's no withholding tax on investments. There's no withholding on duty, on estate duty. So essentially, somebody passes away and passes wealth to the next generation in Hong Kong, it is not taxed. So these are things that make Hong Kong really, really interesting for owners of businesses, because when you make your profit and you pay yourself in dividends, you are not taxed. So 0%, all of that is yours. And if there's no tax on withholding, on repatriation out of Hong Kong, there is no taxation either. So on exit out of Hong Kong, 0% tax. When it lands in your country, in the third country, we can't control. But certainly at Hong Kong, we don't tax you on exit. So that is the second part of the good news. Third part of the good news, who can enjoy that in Hong Kong? Well, essentially in Hong Kong, Mr. Babin at the beginning explained, it's really easy to set up a company in Hong Kong. How easy? Well, you need a minimum of one shareholder and one director. To incorporate a Hong Kong limited company, you just need one shareholder, one director. They can be the same person, and that person does not need to be a Hong Kong resident. So any one of you today sitting in this room, this virtual room, can be the shareholder and director of a Hong Kong limited company. It takes just 7 to 10 days to set up a company, and you don't even need to be in Hong Kong personally to set up a company. If you have a service provider, an accounting firm or law firm, you can just telex them the money, telex them, check this company name, make sure it doesn't clash, make sure it's okay. And we're very reasonable about how we can name our companies. But check the company name, set up the memorandum and articles of association, and the company can be incorporated in 7 to 10 days. How much does it cost? Well, it can be very inexpensive, but I always say don't go for the least expensive. Go for somebody in the middle of the road, not too expensive, not too inexpensive. Something like 2,000 US is easily good enough in terms of finding someone who can incorporate the company for you, but also to advise you on how to structure that company so that if you're dealing with, for example, a Chinese counterpart, or if you have a supply in China, or if you have your own buying office in China, how you can do the China trade, how you can optimize your tax position relative to your Chinese liabilities and so on. Your advisor in Hong Kong is absolutely key. So don't go for the smallest. Go for someone who's big enough to care, big enough to do the job and small enough to care. As a small business going in, if you partner with a big four, for example, they simply don't have the capacity or the attention for what is essentially a startup. So I always say, find someone who's of comparable size, and then they will be able to give you the best attention and the best advice. I'm running out of time. I will skip through some of these remaining slides. I've spoken about the most key, which is the company incorporation and the reason why Hong Kong is Hong Kong. I feel that that's really important because with our friends here today, India and Hong Kong share so much in common. And I'm sure a lot of things that I say here resonate because we have a shared history. Hong Kong is known as International Financial Center, and our legal system underpins that. The reliability and confidence in the legal system is really key to our ability to maintain our position as an international financial center. We listed a whole bunch of companies last year. We were number one in the world, actually, last year. We no longer are number one this year because the US had some giant IPOs with SpaceX and all that. So I think we'll be probably number two this year, but last year we were number one. A lot of companies are finding success in Hong Kong doing listings. A lot of them actually from the Chinese mainland. This is interesting because you recognize the shape of China, and we're at the south coast of China, but actually this puts us in the middle of East Asia or Southeast Asia. And as a result, 4 hours flight from Hong Kong takes us to all the major capital cities in the region. And the base in Hong Kong will give you access to all those markets with ease, not only geographically, but also human resources. Hong Kong people have long done business with the region, and we have got deep experience doing China business as well. So if you come to Hong Kong, setting up in Hong Kong is easy. Employing Hong Kong people is flexible. One thing I should mention is, for example, in Hong Kong, an employment contract can usually includes a clause for severance, for termination. And typically in Hong Kong, an employment contract has a 30-day or 1 month notice. So they say 30 days notice or payment in lieu. What does that mean? That means you either tell your employer, I will be leaving in 30 days, or you tell them, I'm leaving now. I pay you 30 days to buy that severance. And it works the other way too. So the employer can tell the employee, leave in 30 days, or I give you a check for 1 month, you leave now. And it's understood in Hong Kong, and it's very acceptable. So that gives companies a lot of flexibility and confidence in hiring people when times are good, and also releasing them when times are not so good. This slide also shows some various numbers about our, sea cargo and air cargo numbers. Suffice it to say, we rank very highly in air cargo. We don't rank quite so highly in sea cargo simply because in China they're exporting a lot more directly now instead of through Hong Kong. But overall numbers in southern China have exploded. Hong Kong Metal Exchange has now been acquired by Hong Kong EX, which is Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and we are building up Hong Kong as a major center for trading metals, both physical metal and also things like futures. We're very international. We have this massive market north of us. I mentioned Hong Kong, so you recognize Hong Kong here. This massive market of 87 million people. So Hong Kong is 7 million people, together with this group of cities north of us and Macau, so 2 SARs, and the 9 cities in the so-called Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, so we call it the GBA. We have around 87 million people of population and some $2 trillion of GDP and growing. So $2 trillion is about half the size of a Germany. 87 million people is about the population of a Germany. $2 trillion is about half a Germany. And it is very considerable. And this region is within 2 hours of Hong Kong. And cities like Shenzhen is not only the capital for China for tech, but also an international now capital for tech. And Hong Kong serves as its service center for professional services, for financing and so on, internationalization for all these Chinese companies. A company from India setting up in Hong Kong has easy access to all these, to this market if you want to sell to them or source out of them. All out of Hong Kong, very, very easy. I'd be happy to share this presentation with our friends, if that is of interest. I won't be able to go through all of them, but I would like to point that actually Hong Kong is evolving, and we are making a big push into AI and robotics, as is the rest of the world. We can't afford to stand still. I mentioned Shenzhen as a center for innovation. They are really, really making progress in this area, and Hong Kong is serving as a service center for them. We are very small, but we have, I'm not going to play this video. We have this interface with China. That's China in the north. We have this interface, the science park, that's been built to act as the sort of the umbilical cord to help them internationalize. I'll talk about one last thing, which is RCEP. Now, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership is a mega trend. If you have not heard of it, please make note. These 15, now 16 countries, 11 ASEAN countries, because Timor-Leste is the latest addition to ASEAN, it used to be 10. So ASEAN plus China, plus Japan, Korea in the north, plus Australia, New Zealand in the south. These 16 countries have come together and signed something called the RCEP. And we intend to reduce our tariffs between these countries by at least 92%. These 16 countries make up roughly 1/3 of the global GDP, and 1/3 of the global population. And between us, we have industrialized countries like Japan, Korea. We have manufacturing giants like China. We have the emerging markets in Southeast Asia and young populations down here. We have Australia, New Zealand, which have, agriculture and mining and all that. So in terms of people talk about globalization, end of globalization, nonsense. I totally disagree. This is globalization on steroids. It is regionalization where you can't unlearn something you've learned. International trade is something that we learned to the benefit of everybody. And we will trade intensively between each other. We already make up 1/3 of global GDP, and that will increase fast. So companies from India that wish to take part and be a participant in this very exciting trend. Hong Kong is an amazing location from which to visualize and access that market. So principally, Hong Kong used to be an east-west market. Hong Kong was very much Europe, North America, China focused, a little bit in Southeast Asia, but Asia was rising. Increasingly, we are not only east-west, but also north-south. You can see massively that flow will be north-south, and Hong Kong is in the middle of that. So I cannot think of a better place and a more exciting time for Indian companies to set up something in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has a reputation for being expensive, yes, but also no, because Hong Kong has range, has options. And come to Invest Hong Kong. We have actually in India, he's in your time zone, in speaking your language, of course, in English as well. But we have 10 sector teams at Invest Hong Kong to help you specifically the companies that come into here, they fall into the sectors. We can give you expert advice relevant to your sector and connect you with the right stakeholders. Because at the end of the day, finding the right person is by far the most important thing you can do in Hong Kong. You're never more than 2 or 3 phone calls away from the right person. And Invest Hong Kong is free of charge and our services are confidential. We're government and we are neutral. So you have every confidence in coming to us. We help you from the planning stage. We give you information regarding, rents, salaries, and so on. So, you fill out those gaps, those holes in your model, in your Excel sheet. And then when you decide that actually it works, we can help share experience anonymously. We remove the names of people and companies, but we say, these companies have done this successfully in Hong Kong. That might be something to consider. Or they tried this and didn't work. Maybe that's a reference. So we help you in the planning. We help you also in the actual practical setup, the physical setup, and the launch. But also we stay in touch with you on an ongoing basis. A company comes in, maybe employs 3, 5, 10 people. My question is, how can I help that company become 50 people or 500 people? And that to me is economic impact. And that's what we are about. We're about helping companies come to Hong Kong, be successful, flourish, employ Hong Kong people, create economic activity in Hong Kong, and make profit and take those profits home or reinvest them in Hong Kong or in China. So that's who we are. These are, you can take a snapshot or I can share the presentation, but these are the sector groups that we have. Every company will be looked after, no matter where you are, who you are. We'll find a team to look after you. We have a relationship management type operation style. So you will be looked after, and this is the network that we have, and we have an extensive international network. We help each other. Mumbai is where it's located in India, but we work with each other. So that's the presentation. Please take a snapshot or a screenshot if you wish. Get in touch, please. We'll be very, very happy to hear from you. I have overrun, I'm sorry. I can stay for questions if that is useful or interesting, please let me know. Over to you, Lavinia. Hello? Let
I
me
think
unshare
Lavanya is
this.
not there. Probably she
Okay.
couldn't hear you.
Right.
And I am Gulshan Naran. I am the Vice President of BRICS CCI, and I am looking after industry, MSME, and startups.
Right.
And it's a very good. You explained Hong Kong in such a way that we're feeling we are in Hong Kong. One. And it is really good. Taxation is very rational, and points I saw balanced also. And I would request you to share the full PowerPoint presentation to Lavanya so that we can send it across to the members who could not make it.
Right.
And on behalf of BRICS CCI, I would like to thank distinguished guests who are here and a representative from the Invest Hong Kong group, Casey Lam, Akshay, Cynthia, and esteemed members of BRICS, CCI, and all the participants who took out time and came to this gathering today. And it was a very thoughtful, insightful webinar. I sincerely appreciate our present partners to invest in Hong Kong for sharing valuable perspective to how Indian businesses, especially MSMEs and startups, can leverage Hong Kong as a gateway to global markets.
Yeah.
At BRICS CCI, we are committed to fostering international partnerships that create new opportunities for trade, innovation, and investment. I encourage all participants here to build on today's discussion and explore meaningful collaborations with Hong Kong. On behalf of our chairman, Dr. Samir Shastri, and the entire BRICS CCI family, especially the team that has made it possible, especially the BRICS Secretariat, I am so thankful to them. I am so thankful to all the people who attended. Together, let us strengthen global partnerships and create new opportunities for sustainable growth. And thank you once again. Thank you, Casey Lam. Thanks, Akshay. Thanks, Cynthia. And thanks to all the people who were here. So it was a really insight to Hong Kong. Thank you. Have a nice
Thank you very much.
Mr. Lam, I think I have visited your office, Hong Kong office, and met Nancy in the beginning of the month. I was there for a Leap East event. And
All right.
to all the members, let me be very honest that Hong Kong has a lot of family offices right out there, and there are a lot of opportunities specifically with the tech companies. So I really feel that we must plan for a delegations, because Invest Hong Kong is also doing I think a big event in November.
Correct.
So I will also request Mr. Lam if you can plan for a specific delegation from BRICS Chamber of Commerce, because that's what I discussed with Nancy. And if we can also participate we can also be given a space for our members to participate at a discount price. That will also be a good initiative to start these conversation. I think these mails will start coming from our chamber to you. And meeting in person will definitely make it a lot of impact. So once again, thank you so much. Looking forward to see you soon within the next 30 days.
Very good. Very good. I'm very, very grateful for all your support and your interest.
Mr. Lam, before we close the session for the day, may I request if you could take some of the questions, if anybody
Sure.
from the members we have.
Sure. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Casey Lam.
Yes.
So, Nidhi, I'm a chartered accountant and also part of governing body and handle taxes portion. So there is definitely a double taxation treaty between India and Hong Kong, which we take benefit of. And there are a lot of companies which do come to India through Hong Kong route. And of course, you're looking for outbound from India to Hong Kong. So how do you perceive? We have a gift city in India, in Gujarat. So government is encouraging investing or putting up the facility or a office in gift city instead of putting the money in Hong Kong or Dubai or Singapore. So how do you perceive that? What difference you find if you have really studied that?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
So
You mentioned
yes,
your government encouraging people to invest in your cities rather than investing overseas.
so we have a gift city. We have a free zone area,
Okay, okay,
special SEZs area in
right.
Gujarat, which
Mm,
basically is something like Dubai, and it is a
yeah,
tax exempt city. So it is also considered as a foreign land for us, for Indians.
right,
So any
right.
company in India who wants to invest, let's say in Europe or anywhere, maybe in ASEAN or US, so they can use the gift city instead of using the country like Hong Kong for the tax benefit. Ultimately, it's a tax beneficial in the
Right.
financial centers.
Yeah,
So India also has one place which is in Gujarat. It's
yeah.
called City. It's called Gift City. So I don't know whether you have studied that, but what comparison we think that we could have it now after having a country like Hong Kong or a Singapore or Dubai in India, which is tax exempt and completely inbound or outbound, both are tax exempt.
Yeah. I must admit haven't studied Gift City, but I can only make a sort of general comment, and that is Hong Kong is a platform for a certain catchment area. There is a certain logic to that. I'm not saying Hong Kong is the right place for everyone and everywhere. But if I were just to use an analogy, if you are planning to climb Mount Everest, where do you start from? You don't start from Gujarat or Hong Kong or Singapore or Shanghai. You start from base camp. You go to base camp and you prepare your resources. So the resources are your human resources, your Sherpas, your people, your material resources, your information resources, and you use the base camp as a place to train and to do whatever climatization, whatever, so that when the time is right, you press the button, you go. Yeah. And we have lots of base camps around. Hong Kong is your base camp for China, for Southern China, for East Asia. And we're not your base camp for Europe. We're not your base camp for North America. We can't. And we don't pretend to be. So what we try to do is we try to let people understand how is this tool? What is this tool? Understand what you're looking at. This tool, you don't use a fork to eat soup, to drink soup. You use a spoon and not a fork. So it's the right tool for the right purpose. Hong Kong is a tool, and what I'm trying to do is try to let our friends here understand that while we are good at certain things and certain applications, we're not good at everything. Um, we're not the answer to all people's aspirations, and I think that's really important. And that's why in that rankings slide, I don't pretend that Hong Kong is number one or should be number one. Actually, we happen to be number one in certain places. That's how people describe us. But do we make ourselves number one as a target to achieve? No. I mean, people describe you as being short or tall, depending on how they are. You know, if they're shorter than you, they describe you as tall, and if they're taller than you, they describe you as short. So I don't really mind how you describe me. I am who I am. All I'm trying to tell you is I am these things. Hong Kong is these things, and Hong Kong can be applied to the advantage of businesses in those ways. We have English common law, and we speak English, and that simple fact says a lot because India also speaks English. Why? Because we share a common history. We're both under British colonial rule. It's not by accident that we speak English. So it was a painful experience for the both of us. You know, colonial history in India and colonial history in Hong Kong. Later years was good, but you know, Hong Kong was taken as a colony it has a tremendous trauma on the Chinese people. And it cannot be understated. Today, the one country, two system, the emphasis is on the one country. We happen to be allowed to have a second system, but the emphasis is on one country. China will never allow any part of the territory to be ripped away from the sovereign territory of China ever again. And that is part of that trauma. So colonial history is very much part of that DNA that we're living under. Of course, we've benefited from part of that DNA. And that's what we're trying to play to our advantage. India has also had a history with colonial history with Britain. And that commonality, I think, should be recognized and put to the advantage of both our people. And I think that's something that, it is not something we should be proud of or be ashamed of. It's neither positive or a negative. It's a fact. And the fact that you guys speak English and we speak English and we somehow understand each other. When come November the 11th, the Brits wear a poppy. I've seen a poppy before and I know what that means. And when David Cameron wore that poppy to China, that was disastrous because the poppy was opium and the Chinese took that very, very badly. So, those kind of things we wouldn't do in Hong Kong, and we understand that. So these are the, I always, my job is really interesting. I was born in Hong Kong, but I spent a lot of time outside of Hong Kong, and I see Hong Kong as an interpreter, not a translator, an interpreter of intentions, and we're really good at that. We're really good at listening to one side, listening to the other side, and understanding where they're coming from. And knowing and understanding where they're coming from, we're able to mediate and make things happen, make that deal happen. And I think that's really, really key. And, Indian businesses can benefit hugely from an interpreter or mediator like Hong Kong. And I think it's something we should celebrate. And I'm very happy that we are able to offer this.
Yeah. And the second point, thank you very much for your response. The second point is, as you know, that India has some restriction on foreign direct investment into India from China, and somehow Hong Kong has also been restricted, and there is a little bit of relaxation now,
Yep.
10% of this. So we also feel a challenge of outbound from an outbound point of view, because somehow this FDI rules also goes to the ODI to some extent. So do you foresee any problem from an Indian government point of view, from Indian companies to put in or to open their offices in Hong Kong?
No, I don't foresee that. I think the ones that are in that small category of restricted or sensitive industries, I think those are few, very few. I think we know who they are. Again, you can do it until you're told you can't. So I foresee the vast majority of us in this room will be dealing with things that are totally unrelated to things that are so-called sensitive. I'm a great proponent of finding the possible. There's so many things that are difficult and challenging and sometimes impossible. Let's accept that there are things that are not feasible today. But there are gazillions of things that are feasible, that are possible. And let's talk, let's find and discover what is possible and work on those. And, there is enormous benefit to both our peoples that we should, the adults, the big up here and we, the children down here, we keep talking and we have to keep talking. The more difficult that conversation up there, the more necessary this conversation down here. That is so, so, so important. And you guys are doing an amazing job. BRICS is not easy. But it's so crucial. Belt and Road is not easy, but it's so crucial. And I think, if we're able to lay aside our differences, let's do that. But, until such time as the difficult becomes not so difficult, let's focus on the less challenging. There's so many things we can do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Very thoughtful questions.
We
Thank you.
have a few more questions, sir. Somebody in the chat asks, a lot of us think of Hong Kong purely as China gateway. Could you speak to how it opens door into Southeast Asia if it does, and the Belt and Road market basically? So they just want to know if Hong Kong is just China focused, or if it opens a gateway to other Southeastern countries as well.
Well, I thank you for that question. A very, very, very interesting, very important question. Hong Kong is very good at Chinese trade. We are just so good at doing China trade. But to call us solely China focused is, I think, a mischaracterization. We are a trading location par excellence. We're just so good at trade, full stop. We happen to be very close to China, and a lot of Chinese companies use Hong Kong as a platform for international trade, and that's all very good. But I think it'll be a misunderstanding to say that we only do China trade. Hong Kong is a platform. Whoever wishes to use that platform, I mentioned Hong Kong is a free port, no tariffs coming in or going out. So it could be a Chinese company, it could be an Indian company, it could be a Malaysian company, whoever. Same. In fact, when a company is incorporated in Hong Kong, we don't even ask where that company comes from. That's actually one of my main problems, because I'm trying to help foreign companies. There's no way I can identify a foreign company from the registration, because we don't even ask that question. So we don't distinguish and we don't discriminate Hong Kong companies from foreign companies, neither favor nor discriminate positively or negatively, either way. So every company is treated exactly the same way. If you're incorporated in Hong Kong, you're a Hong Kong company, full stop. So from a access point of view, Hong Kong is very close to China. We do a lot of China trade. Is Hong Kong a good East Asia base? Definitely. We have long since, ages and ages, been a regional center for business, building the headquarters. People in Hong Kong fly to every business location in Southeast Asia. I talked about RCEP just now, RCEP. All those countries are very well known to Hong Kong people and Hong Kong businesses, Hong Kong-based businesses. So come and join us. I tell people all the time, the quality meaning qualitative nature of conversations you have over lunch in Hong Kong is different from, qualitatively different from the conversation you have in Beijing or Shanghai or some other place, simply because Hong Kong is so international, and simply because the information that flows through our city is so international. So in terms of outlook, in terms of thinking and mindset and so on, we are easily one of the top 3 most international cities in the world, easily.
Amazing. I hope that answers your question. Actually, the next question is related to what just mentioned. The person asked, in your experience, what is the one mistake that you see Indian business make very often? And that somebody who is new into the market and who wants to, go to Hong Kong should avoid in first go.
I think some common mistakes would be to misunderstand Hong Kong and not leverage the advantages and strengths that Hong Kong has to offer. I think Hong Kong isn't all things to all men. I think that has been my message all this while. Hong Kong has low taxes. Hong Kong has free port status, so flow of goods and material through Hong Kong is easy and fast and efficient. Hong Kong, by the way, is one of the best air cargo airports in the world, not only because of the excellence of our connections. We have so many connections, air connections, but also the efficiency of our customs clearance. Because if you're trading high value perishable goods, and that's really what Hong Kong is really dealing with, a lot of perishables, high value perishables, live seafood, flowers, cold chain pharmaceuticals, stuff like this, high value stuff. That's why they do air shipment. Customs clearance is absolutely critical. And if we want a shipment to go on a certain flight or a certain sailing ship, it will make it, because these customs clearance processes are very easy, very simple, and very, most importantly, predictable. If you can get it into the airport by a certain time, it will make that flight. So it is something that we are immensely proud of. But these are things that we know to be good. So if you're doing something that is time sensitive, that has to be shipped by air, Hong Kong definitely is the place to be. So understanding the things that Hong Kong has to offer. If you want to do something that is land intensive, labor intensive, that relies on things that is beyond the control of your operation here, it is you're adding risk. And what we're trying to do is reduce or remove risk where we can. Risk is costs. You know, if you have risk, you have to have plan B, plan C. Making plan B, plan C adds cost. And so, you know, we want you guys to make profits and keep that profit. You know, I try to repeat that again and again. We want you to just contribute a little bit to our tax dollars, because we need to keep lights on here in Hong Kong. But, you know, beyond that, we reward risk-taking and we reward entrepreneurship. And Hong Kong's made up of this. Hong Kong has a population of 7 million people today, but we had a population of 1 million after the Second World War. From 1 million to 7 million in 70 or 80 years is not organic growth, it's migration. And these are people that came into Hong Kong with almost nothing. They built their lives with their hands. They built a living. Many of them SMEs. That's why we want to support and help SMEs, and that's why we want to reward entrepreneurship. So this is the DNA of Hong Kong. It's undeniable. But understanding that is really, really key. People come here expecting, you know, handouts, government subsidies, and that sort of thing. I'm sorry, we don't have that. We have very limited subsidies for very specific sectors in tech and so on. I don't have time to go through that, but, you know, if that's of interest, we could do another session on that. But understanding what this tool is, it's a fork, not a spoon, you know, or whatever it is. Understanding what the characteristics of Hong Kong really are is really key to leveraging those benefits. Next.
Perfect. I guess being in India, being the world's most populated country, we do understand what migration from opportunity means here.
Yes.
And definitely we resonate with you on that thought. In the end, I would again like to thank you, Mr. Lam, for this insightful session today. You have clearly highlighted why Hong Kong remains one of the world's most competitive businesses, and how it can, you know, serve as a strategic gateway for Indian companies looking to expand internationally. I'm sure our audience would have gained experience on Hong Kong's business and investment ecosystem and the opportunities across high growth sectors. Again, thanks a lot for joining us today. I also would like to thank and extend my our appreciation to Invest Hong Kong for partnering with BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry today in organizing this insightful session, and for its continued commitment to supporting businesses exploring, you know, opportunities all across. Finally, a heartfelt thank you to all the participants for your enthusiastic participation and engaging questions. We hope this session today would have been informative and valuable to all of you present here. Again, we encourage everyone to stay connected with BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry for our upcoming international business forums, you know, and keep networking, keep connecting with each other, and keep sharing opportunities. Thank you so much, Mr. Lam, again, and we wish everyone present here a wonderful day.
Sorry, if I may just add one word.
Sure.
I note my colleague actually has put his contact details on the chat. So I encourage our friends to have a look. If you're interested, to just make a record of his contact details, and please do get in touch. As I said, our services are free of charge, is non-committal. So basically we help as much or as little as you need, and according to the timeline and time frame that is yours. We don't have targets to push n number of projects through per year or whatever. So we work to your needs. So please do get in touch. But thank you, Lavanya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Akshay, for providing your contact. I hope everyone keeps note of the email ID and the contact number provided in the chat box. And for any query, please feel free to reach out to BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or you can directly reach out to Mr. Akshay Karute for any doubts that you would have. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also request everyone to kindly switch on your cameras quickly for a quick group picture today. A quick selfie, guys, if you can turn on your cameras. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Great.
Thank you.
All right. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.